What if I told you that this isn't even all the books? I'm shockingly not feeling too tired. I need to like knock on some wood as I say that. Hi friends, welcome back to the channel. Today it is time for another reading vlog, and I have committed to every other month doing a 24-hour readathon. And I have to say this is coming at the perfect time because it is July 17th and I have not read a single book off of my July TBR. I have no one to blame but myself. I just had a lot of holds come in from the library for a lot of the new releases that just came out. So while I had the chance, I took the opportunity to read a bunch of those. But that means we have a lot of books to choose from for this 24-hour readathon. So let's go through our choices. What if I told you that this isn't even all the books? Oh my goodness, we're gonna be busy today. First book on the list is A Torch Against the Night by Sabaa Tahir, The Co-op by Dewitt, Lightlark by Aster, The Spy and I by Tiana Smith, Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia Fairies by Heather Fawcett, Beg, Borrow, or Steal by Sarah Adams, Promise Be Sunshine by Kara Bestone, and then on my Kindle, specifically through Kindle Unlimited, I do have Direbound by Sable Sorensen. Now the only book out of all of those that I mentioned that I've even started is A Torch Against the Night. I started this one because I knew that this was going to take the longest to get through. Not only is it decently chunky, but it's just like a very big paperback, so there are a lot of words on each of these pages. Right now I'm about like 40 to 45% of the way through this, so we still have a really good chunk to go. For reference, currently I am on page 213 and I just started part 2. For anyone unaware of this fantasy series, this is book 2 in the Ember Quartet, which follows An Ember in the Ashes. This is very much a fantasy forward series. If you're looking for like a fantasy romance, I'm not sure if you'll like this one too much. We only have the lightest sprinkling of romance in here. In these books, we have two main characters. Our FMC is named Laya. Her and her family are scholars, and currently that is the repressed group within this world. Our MMC Elias is part of the Marshall Empire, and they are the ones currently oppressing the scholars. And when we first meet him, he is currently in training at Blackcliff Academy, which is their top training academy in this world. And he's in training to be one of their most ruthless enforcers, a ruthless soldier, which is called a mask. Now, after Laya's family is taken away and her brother is taken to prison, she goes undercover as a spy at Blackcliff Academy for the rebellion group that is currently trying to overthrow the Marshalls. As she's undercover as a slave, that is when these two meet. They should be mortal enemies. However, Elias has a lot of mixed feelings about what he's been doing for his whole life, and that's where I'll leave it because there's a lot of twists and turns that come up after that. I will say this is one of like the most violent fantasy series I've read thus far. Book 1 was honestly really hard to get through at multiple points because with Laya being a slave, she experiences a lot of violence and abuse towards her. There's always kind of this looming presence and a lot of discussion around SA going on within the academy. So I found book 1 a little bit hard to get through. I will say at this point, book 2 is a little bit less hard to get through just with where their circumstances are currently at. Our world is getting a lot bigger, and mainly we're just seeing a lot of other people die around us rather than our own characters experiencing a lot of that violence specifically towards them. That being said, I do think this book is dragging just a little bit. Like mentioned, we're on page 213, and I just don't feel like a ton has happened. So I'm very curious to see how the second half of this book goes. I just hope that as we continue to move along, some things start picking up, maybe some more plot lines are introduced or we get an answer or two. Because with where we're at right now, I will be honest, I am a little bit bored, but it's probably time for me to stop yapping because it is currently 10:12. I think we should go ahead, try and start our timer at 10:15, and we're just gonna read for 12 hours straight today. Thought it would be fun to do like an hour check-in to see where we're at. So we just passed like an hour and 5 minutes, and I just made it to part 3, the dark prison. I wanted something to happen, and now something happened. One of our character situations just got so much worse, so that's super fun. Interestingly enough, in book 1, we only get 2 POVs, which is Elias and Laya. However, in this book, we also get a 3rd POV, which is Helene. Now, in book 1, I think everyone can kind of agree you really just don't like Helene. She's very much a rule follower and endorses kind of all the wrongness and the prejudiced thinking that's going on. Now, with getting her POV, we do start to understand that her situation is much more complex than maybe we realized, and her situation just keeps getting ever more complicated. And a sentiment that I've heard from a lot of other people who have read this series is that her character arc is like one of the best you're ever gonna read. She really does do like a 180, and I can already feel this building, and I wonder at the end of this if I'm gonna end up liking Helene more than Laya. Even though Helene is a marshal and basically like does everything for the Empire, I feel like just the personal struggles and juggling she has to do is going to be really interesting to watch throughout the series. So that's kind of the main thought I've had over these last like 65 pages that I've read. I feel like at this point, if I had to compare the series to anything else I've read, I would probably compare it to Throne of Glass the most, just with the violence and it being way more focused on fantasy than like a fantasy romance aspect. Getting the multiple POVs and just like the very dark themes going on throughout the stories. I think that's like my best comparison that I have for this series so far. But if you guys have read this series and you think that it's comparable to another thing, let me know down below, because I do like this so far and I think it would be worth exploring some more fantasy recommendations. But that's all I'm gonna chit chat for now. Gotta get back to reading. I do think I still have like at least 2 to 3 hours of reading left to get through the remaining 180 pages, but I'll probably check in with you guys whenever I get to finishing this. Book number 1 complete. We are 4 hours. You literally can't see anything that I'm trying to show you. We are 4 hours and 15 minutes through the readathon. This book did take me a little bit longer than I wish it did, but it's just dense. There's a lot of words on these pages, so I'm glad we got through this one. Again, I would say like overall, if you were sensitive to the first one, this isn't as bad. There's just like mass murder going on, so just know that's what you're entering into. A lot of death and violence. I feel like the women didn't go through as much as kind of the men were enduring. But anyways, I think that means that it's time for something a little bit lighter. Luckily, I would say like the rest that I have on my physical TBR at least aren't too bad. I don't think I'm gonna end up getting to Dire Bound. At least not right now. That doesn't really seem to be like the journey I'm on at the moment. Promise Me Sunshine, while I think it's going to be a great book, it is all about like grieving, losing a friend. Our character's really lost and depressed and needs to find herself. It's probably not what we're in the mood for right now. And I do have to say, I had to pick Emily Wilde for one of the prompts that we did in the TBR video, but I just really don't feel like Emily Wilde is the peak of summer reading. So again, that's probably pretty low on my list because that just feels much more like a fall or winter read. So if I had to go through my romances, easy breezy reads, that would leave us with The Co-op, The Spy and I, and Beg, Borrow, or Steal. I could kind of make this into a getting through series I'm in the middle of vlog at the same time, because this is book 3 in the When in Rome series, which follows a few different siblings in the small town of Rome, Kentucky. This is following our 3rd sibling, Emily. She is a 2nd grade teacher, and she is feuding with a fellow teacher who happens to be her neighbor as well. I know that the first 2 books in this series, I think I read in like, 4 or 5 hours, 1 or 2 sittings. They're really quick and easy to get through. So I think this is going to be our next one, just because I think this is going to be very fun, lighthearted, just kind of silly, goofy. And I do also have this as an audiobook. So What I'm going to do, because obviously a 24-hour readathon lends to you just sitting a lot, I think I'm gonna put in the audiobook and maybe go to the gym, do a quick little workout, get my body moving, and then we can finish out the rest of this whenever I get home. That's gonna be the plan of attack. Next time I see you, I will be updating you on how Beg, Borrow, or Steal is going. A little midway reading update. I'm 45% of the way through Beg, Borrow, or Steal. And we just passed 17 hours left. So that means that I have read for 7 hours. Yes, okay, so we have like 5 hours left. I'm shockingly not feeling too tired. I need to like knock on some wood as I say that. I've only had one Diet Coke today, which feels like a real win. I do have a Diet Coke planned for later on at dinner, but for now, we're getting through this book in pretty good time. I am very happy to say that I think this is my favorite book in this series so far. I did like When in Rome, but like it wasn't a book that stuck with me whatsoever. I didn't really love Practice Makes Perfect as much. That was like a wallflower girl, player guy, and he's like teaching her dating techniques. I don't know, it just didn't fully land with me. I don't think I connected with that sister at all, but I'm really liking the dynamic we're seeing so far with Emily and Jackson, or Jack. They are rivals from college. Their first time meeting, they just got off on like a really bad foot. And so far their dynamic has just always been like very playfully hostile, I would call it. And because they went through the same college, they got like the same degrees. They're now both teachers at the same school in the same grade. Even though they don't really like each other, their lives just keep kind of forcing them back together. Jackson did move away for a little bit of time to Nebraska because he moved away with his then girlfriend because they were supposed to get married. That didn't happen, so he moved back to Rome, Kentucky, and very swiftly they realized that they're going to be neighbors. And with that forced proximity, we're seeing a lot of very funny scenes play out with the two of them. I do like that even though they're by no means together, because of that forced proximity, almost like all of our chapters and all of our scenes are them together rather than seeing a bunch of time apart between these two characters. Their banter with each other is so funny. I've been like genuinely smiling and kind of giggling at some things that I've been reading. So far I would definitely say like this is tracking to be pretty high, and I definitely like it much more than the others. So that is good news. We love when a book takes us by surprise and unexpectedly is better than we thought it would be. And again, it just reads so quickly. I'm already on page 160, chapter 14. I'm hoping I'll be able to finish this with still a few hours to go for the rest of the day, and we can start a new book later tonight. I did forget to mention earlier, whenever I told you that I finished A Torch Against the Night, I'm gonna leave my ratings for the last thing we talk about in this video. Generally, I like to come back a day after the 24-hour readathon has completed, give you my thoughts and ratings then, just because whenever I'm reading things so back to back, I'm not always totally solid on what my ratings will be. So stay tuned for the end where we go over all of our ratings. And unless something crazy happens, I'll probably check in again at the end of this book. Apologies if this lighting is really weird, guys. It's pitch black outside. I have this lamp next to me. We're doing what we can. Great news is I just finished the second book of this readathon, and I am so happy to say that I really loved this. It did not drop off in the second half. In fact, I think I just love these characters a little bit more. I think I just really resonate with Emily, just the perfectionist daughter who puts the weight of the world on her shoulders, bottles up all of her emotions, is the empath of the family. Yeah. resonated with this a little bit too hard. I just really loved her story arc and her finally learning to trust and be willing to open up to a partner. That was just great to see. So we love that we're starting off strong on this readathon. We have 13 hours and 9 minutes left, which means we only have just over an hour to go for this evening. Whatever book I pick up next, I'm not gonna get super far into it. Really, we're just gonna have a little taste. And for our little taste, I think I'm gonna give Lightlark by Aster a go. Now, this might be kind of a rogue choice, even though I'm still in the middle of so many series and there's so many other series that I wanna start. This is just giving me like Powerless vibes in a way, and I at least loved the first Powerless book, so I'm hoping that I'm gonna love this as well. I haven't read anything by Aster. This is the first in a series. I believe it's a YA fantasy series, but I can keep you guys updated as I read along. It's not like the shortest book that I could have picked, but it's not crazy long either. It's like just over 400 pages, which feels pretty manageable. We'll see how this goes to start the night. I'm not gonna have some amazing commentary to share just after the first hour of reading it, but I'll at least do a quick little check-in to give you guys my initial first impressions whenever we hit that 12-hour mark. Just made it halfway through. Gonna pause right at 12. I think I'm gonna adjust. The lighting is a little bit better here, but we do have a friend. He's gonna say hello.
Oh my gosh.
What?
Wow. Do you remember the stuff about my truck?
Yeah.
See this thing about it? This is my truck.
Oh my god, it made the news.
But like not in a good way.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry. I can update you after.
Okay, tell me later. Made it 60 pages through. We're on chapter 8. It is feeling quite YA. It is definitely giving me a lot of similar feelings to Powerless, but I'm not sure if that's a good thing. And I already see 2 plot lines that are repeated from Powerless, and Powerless already had a lot of repetitive plot lines in it, so I don't know how this is gonna be. Another thing throwing me off is everything is just like very comically dumbed down, because there's 6 realms that come together once every 100 years for a centennial to try and break this curse that is over all the realms. And the realms have like these very comically simple names, like Starling, Skyling, Moonling, and Sunling. And I've heard someone else criticize that before. Like, these realms don't have very unique names. Obviously, each one's going to represent the corresponding figure of either a star, sky, moon, or sun. I'm not too sure. I think this is quite the fall from grace after An Ember in the Ashes vibes, just because that world feels much more complex and thoroughly thought through. I'm not too sold on this one just quite yet, but we'll check back in tomorrow and see if it gets any better. Okay, I figured it was about time for a catch up. I am about 4 hours into the readathon today. We have just over 8 hours left. I'm now 60% of the way through Lightlark, and if I'm being honest, this is not tracking to be over like a 3 stars. I think it's sitting in between like a 2 to a 3 stars right now. I'm not really loving this. If I had to compare this to any other fantasy books that I've read, I would definitely say Powerless, like I mentioned last night. The Caraval series as well. Our main character, Isla, is really reminding me of Scarlet in that series. And I found Scarlett to be such a frustrating character. She was just like super naive, would enter into deals without thinking anything through, inevitably would always like make too rash of decisions and just make her situation a whole lot worse. And I feel like that's the case with Isla. Even though she's trained her whole life for the centennial event and has to hide a really big secret and be very strategical with what she's doing, she just manages to get like nothing done and mess everything up in the process. But at the same time, a couple things have happened to her that are just way too convenient. So at this point, this book isn't really hitting for me. And if I were to make the effort of continuing on with it, it would at least take like 2 to 3 more hours to get through. And I just don't want to waste such a big chunk of this readathon on a book that I'm not really loving and I'm not going to give a positive review on. So I think it's worth looking at what else I have on the TBR. As I mentioned last time I was choosing some books, I'm still not in the mood for Emily Wilde or Promise Me Sunshine. I have kind of already decided that I'd like to try and get through both of these if I can in the remaining 8 hours. I think The Spy and I is going to be very easy to do. It's around like 328 pages. The font is pretty big. I think the story is going to be just like very fun. And the co-op is on my Kindle, which is why I'm leaning to this first, because I am just kind of tired also of holding a book. I've read a physical book for the last 3 books straight. So my wrists are just tired. I'd rather be able to get comfortable, get cozy, read on my Kindle, and this is on Kindle Unlimited. This is a very similar length to The Spy and I. It is 338 pages. So I think if I'm strategic and I don't get distracted too much, I think we can finish both of these books or get very damn near close. And I think that's better than me just like wasting a bunch of time on this one and only getting to one other book. I'll just probably finish this in my own time throughout the rest of this month. Give you guys my final thoughts on my monthly wrap up. Yeah. I don't know if I'm loving this. I'm curious what other people think. I don't know if really like YA fantasy sticks with me that much. I think I do prefer an adult fantasy because this main character just feels like too young and naive, and that's just very frustrating for me. Personally, like for example, I really loved Selena in Throne of Glass because she was just so capable. And since we're only in Isla's head, I just need a very capable main character to cheer for. I was going to go to the gym today, but I don't have this as an audiobook, and I got sadly pretty terrible sleep last night. So I think I'm gonna listen to my body. I think I'm just going to like get on my walking pad for a little bit, and otherwise we'll just chill at home for the rest of the day. That is my update so far. While we're like midway through this video and I have a chance to remember this, at the time of me filming this, we are so close to 1,000 subscribers. I mentioned this in my last video, but I would love to get some questions built up for a little Q&A. I feel like a 1,000 subscriber Q&A would be fun, just so you guys could know a little bit more about me. I do have this channel with my husband Hunter. He's not a huge reader, which is why he's not going to be involved in this reading vlog. But if you guys have any questions for him or us, let me know. I'd love to get some questions going. I think it would be fun for you guys just to get to know us a little bit better. So that will be my plug before I go. And now it is time to pick up this contemporary romance called The Co-op by Tarah DeWitt. Time for another update because we have just over 6 hours left, which means I am 3/4 of the way through this readathon and halfway through today. Currently, I am 40% of the way through the co-op, which is page 138, and I have exactly 200 pages left. I have read one other book by Tarah DeWitt before. I read Savor It, and unfortunately I didn't really love that. I felt like the writing style was really weird and unnecessarily clunky. I also feel like in that book our FMC was just overly quirky and couldn't relate to her. But I am liking the co-op much more, even though the premise of this book is a little hazy. And I feel like even though I'm at 40% of the way through, we only just got to the main premise of the book. A lot more to see with where the story goes. Our two main characters in this are Loren and Deacon. Now, their grandmothers growing up were best friends and I believe lived in the same building. They've known each other since they were teenagers and had a little summer fling whenever they were 19 and just about to start college. That, however, did not end well, and they hadn't seen each other in multiple years. That is until Loren's grandmother passes away. In the building that the grandmothers lived in, they are left with shared ownership of. Now, upon them inheriting this building together, it is in a chaotic state, basically unlivable state, and needs a complete overhaul and remodel. Deacon actually has a lot of construction experience, but does not have the money to fund all of the repairs that are necessary. Loren does have the money in a trust fund. However, she has to be married to receive said funds. So these two enter into a little marriage of convenience so that Loren can access the money and they can remodel this building, ideally to either one day rent out the building or sell it and make a huge profit. During present day and in these building repairs, they do have to live together. So we have like a second chance romance, forced proximity, marriage of convenience, a lot of things going on within this story. But I do feel like the author has done a much better job of making the prose feel a little less clunky. I do think she is a little long-winded. Sometimes we do just get 2 paragraphs that are literally like the entirety of the page on my Kindle. Is everything written there that meaningful? Probably not. I feel like we could have edited it down quite a bit, but I think it's definitely flowing a lot better than Savor It. So I am enjoying myself. I definitely am enjoying this much more than I was enjoying Lightlark, so I'm happy with my decision to switch up my read. I had put this on my TBR for this month because I felt like this was going to give good summer vibes. To me, the cover screams summer, and while the flashbacks that we see to their childhood do take place in the summer, and the building is located right across the street from the beach, I'm not getting like a ton of summer vibes to this. I feel like honestly you could read this at any time. I'm gonna quit my yapping, get back to my reading. I really want to try and end this book with about 4 hours left, so I'm gonna do my best. No promises, because I just don't think I could get through that other book with less than 4 hours left. So we're definitely gonna have a big push heading into these last few hours of the readathon, but that is my update so far on the co-op. Another book done with 3 hours and 45 minutes left. I tried to marathon this as quickly as possible. This was as fast as I could go. I did really like this story. I think this was a sweet romance, even though it is very tropey. I think overall it was very well done. There was a lot of emotional depth in here that like genuinely made sense to the character. I feel like in Savor It, the author tried to add emotional depth and some of it just felt inauthentic in a way. I would say these storylines made a lot of sense. I did enjoy this, even though it is, you know, less than 340 pages. I do feel like it was just a little bit too long. I feel like she is quite long-winded in some sections, and this could have been dialed back just a little bit. When Hunter walked in tonight, he did bring in a little package. Any guesses what book I bought? I did get the next book in the Ember and the Ashes quartet. Since I really enjoyed book 2, I don't want to lose any steam and drag out this series any longer, so I'm really hoping that I can get to this book sooner rather than later. This book is way too long and chunky for me to try and read in the 3 hours and 45 minutes we have remaining. So I am gonna go ahead, go upstairs, pick up The Spy and I by Tiana Smith, and we'll keep our fingers crossed that the train keeps rolling with some good books throughout this readathon. I subjected us to such terrible lighting last night. I thought I'd pull out the ring light and get a little bit more professional today. 60% of the way through The Spy and I have an hour and 22 minutes left of the readathon. I feel like I'll be able to finish this just in the nick of time because this does read ridiculously quickly. So let's debrief this quickly and I can give you guys my midway thoughts. So going into this, I thought this was going to have a similar plot to The Blonde Identity by Ali Carter. That book covers a mistaken identity between two sisters, where one of the sisters is unknowingly brought into the spy world and has to complete a mission with her sister's sexy spy partner. Now, is this almost the same plot? Yes. I would say, at least in this story, the sister who is mistaken for the spy is luckily a computer hacker for a living, so she does bring some valuable skills to the storyline. And I feel like a lot of the secrets that took forever to find out in The Blonde Identity come to light much more quickly. That being said, is this one of the most cliched books I've ever read in my life? Absolutely yes. I'm a sucker for anything involving spies, a spy movie, a spy book. I'm generally gonna eat it up. So far, I really don't feel like there's anything new in this book that I haven't seen done before. Every little plot twist that we have, I've seen coming from a mile away. I will say that the relationship that we see between our FMC Dove and her sister's partner Mendez does happen extremely quickly. It is like insta love, insta lust times 1,000. They haven't actually done a lot up to this point, but we definitely know that it's coming. And instantly, the first night they met, they were almost making out. So you definitely have to go into the right expectations with this book. I really wouldn't go in expecting anything amazing, expecting anything that's never been done before, but it is a really easy read. And if you like things with spies, I would say that it gets the job done. I have about 130 pages left, so I'm just gonna try and marathon this out. And then I think we'll do our big debrief and go over all the ratings tomorrow when I've had a chance to sleep, because I definitely have gone through a couple waves so far this evening of just being absolutely exhausted. I am so excited to see my bed at the end of this readathon. We only have a little bit more to go. And that marks the end of another 24-hour readathon. It's a few days later, which means I am ready to give my ratings. I am a bit surprised because usually throughout the 24-hour readathon and a few days later, I am kind of switching up my ratings here and there. However, all of the books that I read this time, the first rating that I gave is what I stayed at. I really didn't have any fluctuation with how I was feeling about these books. So let's go through and start at the beginning. We started off by finishing A Torch Against the Night by Sabaa Tahir. I was about 200 pages in whenever we first started, and then we read the second half together. I'm standing by that I like this one a little bit more than book one in the series, just because it was a little less jarring, a little less triggering in my opinion. However, I will say that I wish a few more things happened in this book. Not saying that nothing was accomplished, but it didn't really feel like our story progressed that much. I did really appreciate seeing Helene's character, and I'm curious to see how our characters handle the situations that they're in book 3. And I unboxed book 3 in this video, so hopefully I'm going to be able to get to that one in my next monthly TBR, and we can just work our way through the series. But the final rating that I landed on was a solid 4 stars. Really good, but I'm hoping for a bit more action in our next book. From there, I went into the surprising favorite of this video. I'll be honest, I really didn't have super high hopes for this one. My ratings and thoughts on the series as a whole initially were pretty mediocre. It was like a solid 3-star series. For some reason, I just absolutely loved this one. I thought that the character chemistry was honestly off the charts. Their banter was so funny. I loved their hate to love dynamic. Also really resonated with our FMC, so I think this is just overall a very well-rounded book. And I ended up giving this a 4.25 stars, which is definitely the highest rating that I've given anything in this series thus far. I really didn't know if Sarah Adams was going to be an author for me, But after reading this one, I definitely think I'm going to give her newer works more of a go. I do know that there's a book 4 coming out in this series, which I think is coming out in the next few months. I'll show a picture of that next book and its estimated release date just so you guys have that info. But if you're looking for a really quick, wholesome, small town romance, I would say you should pick up the When in Rome series. Our next completed book from there was The Co-op by Tarah DeWitt. As mentioned, I definitely like this book a lot more than my previous book by Tarah DeWitt, which also does give me some hope for some other books that I have on her backlist to read. I feel like our characters in this one had some good emotional depth and made a lot of sense to their characterization. I think we could have cut this down a little bit, but I wouldn't have that be a big inhibitor on picking this up or not. It still does read quite quickly, and it is under like 350 pages, so this isn't a book that you'll be stuck on for too long. That being said, I don't think these characters are going to stick with me for a super long time, so I did give this a 3.5 stars, but even though I enjoyed this one, it wasn't a mega standout for me. Right at the very end, just in the nick of time, I finished The Spy and I. Not gonna tell a lie, giving myself a quick pat on the back for this. I did time this book out perfectly. I literally finished it with seconds left to go in the timer. So this is a book that I definitely read the quickest. This is such a quick and easy read. Now, I will say that the story is just honestly so cliche, and I think you can read it so quickly because it's all things that you've seen before. These characters definitely aren't gonna be ones that stick with me. I really didn't like the insta love that was going on in this as well. So I did give this a 3 stars. I do know that there is a sequel that came out in this series, and I don't really think I'm super inclined to pick that up. Reflecting on my reading, this is definitely not going to be a book that sticks with me. And finally, the other book that we picked up but did not complete was Lightlark by Aster. I still stand by, I don't think this is going to be anything above a 3 stars. Still think this is going to be tracking in between like a 2 to a 3. Just our main character reads quite young. In my opinion, her POV is quite frustrating to be a part of. She's just quite young and naive, and that's not generally the characters that I like to root for. So I am going to finish this out by the end of the month, so keep an eye out for my monthly wrap up. But I guess this is a learning lesson for me. I think maybe I'm aging out of YA fantasy, so maybe this was my bad in picking this up. I at least got to check this off of my 2025 TBR list, so that is good, but I definitely don't foresee finishing the series from here. So once again, that concludes the 24-hour readathon. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any other reading vlog ideas that you'd like to see, please leave a comment down below. I definitely want to do a reading vlog in August that's different from a 24-hour readathon, but at the moment, I don't really have ideas on what I should do. So if you have any concepts or themes or some type of challenge you'd like to see in a reading vlog next month, make sure to leave a comment down below and let me know. But for now, this is where I will love you and leave you, so thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe before you leave so that you don't miss any of our upcoming videos, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye, guys!